recruiting class to the Pasadena Police Department, given retirements and people moving on. We have to keep up, as we do every year, with recidivism in the city. And so you were asking members of the recruited class to come up and introduce themselves. Welcome.
And actually, Mayor, I said that there's 10 here, but we actually just hired 12.
Great.
So one is in the academy. He couldn't be here. And it's Percy Tucker's son, former sergeant.
Oh, I remember
from here.
Sergeant Tucker. Sure.
And so his son is currently at the academy, and we have one additional hire who's out in the field working. So
Great.
we'll let the ones that are here introduce themselves.
Good evening. My name is Osiris Negrete, and I'm a recent LASD graduate from the academy. We graduated last Friday. And I've actually been an employee for the city for the last 10 years. I was born and raised in Pasadena. I started as a youth advisor, then became a police cadet, then I became a police dispatcher. Then I did a couple years in finance, and now I'm a police officer. I'm excited to serve and protect the community that raised me.
That's great. Well, welcome to the new chapter in your city career and with the police department, and thank you for choosing this department.
Thank you, sir.
And one more thing about OC, we call her OC. Her husband was a police officer here as well. He got injured, and he's not with us, but he sent his wife in his place.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tyson Crutchfield. A little bit about myself is I'm actually from Pasadena. I went to UC Irvine, graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminology law and society, and then in 2020, I graduated with a master's degree in criminology law and society. Both my parents are from Pasadena, both went to John Muir High School. And, one thing they told me about is Pasadena has a tradition. And, they have the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. The Bulldogs and the Mighty Mustangs go at it every November. So I said, you know what, I want to join this tradition. I want to join the Pasadena family. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. So your dad is Tony Crutchfield?
He is, sir.
Tell him I said hello.
I will, sir.
And he and I played against one another for a long time. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Including in the draft.
Yeah, please tell your dad Tyrone Hampton said hello as well.
I will, sir.
Tony Crutch. All right.
Thank you.
Getting old.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Danny Arambolo. I am a husband, father of 3 kids. I come to Pasadena with several years of previous law enforcement experience. I'm very, very grateful and excited for getting the opportunity to serve and protect the city of Pasadena. This is a wonderful city. I look forward to building new and strong relationships here. Pasadena is a place where I've made a lot of good memories when I was growing up with my family. So I hold it near and dear to my heart. I'm just excited to the next chapter of my career to go on here. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for choosing this department and welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Calvin Blake, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself today. The city of Pasadena has always held a special place in my heart. As a child, my family and I would always come to the city to watch the Rose Parade and watch UCLA games at the Rose Bowl. Throughout my teenage and college years, I frequently came to Old Town for the shopping, the food, and the nightlife. I come to the city of Pasadena with 3.5 years experience as a deputy sheriff from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The reason why I came to the PPD is because of its reputation throughout the law enforcement community, and that is a reputation of excellence and great community partnership. And in the 5 months that I've served as a Pasadena police officer, I can honestly say that the PPD has far exceeded my expectations. I look forward to the opportunity and the privilege to continue to serve this community for many years to come.
Thank you, officer, and welcome. Glad you left the Sheriff's Department to come to Pasadena.
Glad I did too, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Barros, and I too am glad I left the Sheriff's Department. I worked with LA County for approximately 1.5 years as URDF. I don't have any, growing up connections here at Pasadena. However, I do come to Pasadena to work out at the Rose Bowl. I look forward to the rest of my career here. I was influenced by a by a Pasadena police officer to come here. She was also a former deputy. I looked into the department, the city. I loved it. I was very heavily influenced, and I just see nothing but excellence here.
Great. And now you're a part of it. Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Mason Kogan. I'm a new officer. I was sworn in on Friday. Just graduated from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Academy, class 456. I grew up in Culver City. I was not from Pasadena, but this is definitely a home. I've been welcomed with open arms. This is a family environment. That's kind of what attracted me to come to Pasadena. I worked for the Culver City Police Department as a civilian employee beforehand, and I was looking to kind of take the next step. Pasadena provided a lot of opportunity. It's a city that's too small to be big, but too big to be small. So I look forward to serving here and then learning along the process in the field training program that we begin next week. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your comments are very well put, and it tells me you understand our city. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Severino. The last time we met was probably 6 months ago before my classmates and I had joined the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Academy. But now we finished strong. I could honestly say that we went in 5 strong. We came in 5 strong again. But one thing that resonated with me throughout the academy, our ramrod, our head TI, had mentioned that when it comes to police work, it's not just about community relations. It's all about community relations. And I believe that the Pasadena Police Department has already stepped up their game. They're already head of the future in law enforcement. And I'm glad to be part of the new team. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, officer. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations, 5 of 5.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Lopez. I'm actually a recent graduate with some of my partners who just recently graduated this past Friday. I actually was a police cadet for 3.5 years at the Pasadena Police Department. And right there and then, like, I knew this is where I want to be. The atmosphere, like they had mentioned previously, it's amazing. The community, the police department itself, it's just an amazing place. You can tell, like, these people really care about you, and we're really a big family, and it's just amazing to be part of it. And I really look forward to serving this community.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
The fabulous 5.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Norwood. I'm from Rancho Cucamonga, California. As it relates to the city, my mother's from here. She also went to John Muir High School. I grew up going to the Rose Parade of the Year, and my sister, brother-in-law, and niece also live here as well. I started the academy in February. I'm looking forward to striving for excellence and doing the best I can, so I can also make a positive change in the city festival.
Great, thank you. We'll get you to move to Pasadena from Rancho.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas King, and I'm currently employed as a police officer trainee with the department, and I am set to attend academy in February. I'm originally from Chino Hills, California, and I was raised in a law enforcement family. I also had the opportunity to live overseas in Beijing, China for over 6 years, as my father was stationed at the U.S. Embassy as he was on a diplomatic assignment over there. I'm also a recent college graduate from the University of California, Irvine, as well as I majored in criminology, law, and society. Although I do not have any former connections in Pasadena, I knew I wanted to work here, and I decided to apply here because of the reputation that the Pasadena Police Department holds. That being it being one of, if not the best police departments, and that's the reason why, because I'm going to look for the best. Along with that, the family environment that the department offers, along with the multiple and various assignments that the department holds, is also factors that driven in wanting to apply here. In the near future, once I graduate from academy, finish FTO, and pass probation, I'll one day work in the detectives, specifically with the narcotics unit in SIU. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Is that it? I just want to, I'll turn it back over to Cheryl Moody before I make some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mayor, Public Safety Committees, you can see we have a multicultural group here we've hired, and we wanted to be able to be sure that we reflected the community, which is multicultural and with a variety of experiences. But as you can see, most of them are very young. And so they bring in new ideas and new ways of policing, new thoughts. You know, we'll have to, of course, train them with the basics, but I think we'll learn something from them as well.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for deciding to come to Pasadena.
Yeah, I'd just like to welcome all of you. And for those of you who have been in the policing field previous to coming to Pasadena, thank you for making the transition and continuing in the police world. It's a tough profession to be in right now. But you've made the very noble decision to stay in the profession. And the fact that you are staying in the profession tells me a lot about your character and the fact that you've chosen Pasadena to continue with this profession. I thank you for on behalf of the residents of Pasadena. And for those of you who are new to the profession, congratulations. But at the same time, you know, it's a tough time to be a police officer anywhere in the country, and you all know that. So the step that you're taking is a very noble step in the direction of public service. And I, on behalf of the City Council and the committee, wish you well. I see so many of our more seasoned officers, Art Shute, and you know, the lieutenants and people who have been around for a long time, and I who know this community well. And I would encourage you to lean on them to provide you guidance as you enter your career with Pasadena. And you know, these are people that I certainly trust, that I've watched and have grown up with in Pasadena. And it's a great city. You're right, Pasadena is too large to be small and too small to be large. You know, we're a large city trapped in the body of a small one. Everything you find in a large city, you will find in the city of Pasadena. And you know, that badge that you wear out there is a tremendous and awesome responsibility. And you know, I certainly understand it, and I thank you for being willing to take it on right here in the city of Pasadena, the center of the universe. Those of you who believe that you didn't have a connection to Pasadena before, well, now you do. And you know, that's a connection that you and your family will always remember. And you know, welcome, thank you, and good luck and the best to all of you. Mr. Kennedy, and then Mr. Hampton.
To all of our new officers, I would simply like to say that follow your field training officers in terms of their learning, ask numerous questions. My brother is a retired LA County Sheriff. He served there with distinction. I'm glad those of you who came over to the Pasadena Police Department are with us now. We have high expectations for all of you. I would say that as a former Deputy Chief of Police in Richmond, Virginia, who hired lots of police officers, it appears that you are cream of the crop, and that bodes well for the city of Pasadena. Additionally, I would say whether it's a suspect or a just regular resident, a community member or a business owner, everyone deserves kindness and professionalism. And that's what you have come to the podium and told all of us tonight that is part of your character as police recruits, or I think all of you may be police recruits. So I also want to point out the fact that Ms. Crutchfield's father grew up 2 doors down from me on Hammond Street. So get to know Hammond Street and all of its residents as well. I wish each of you a wonderful career in the city of Pasadena. There will be challenges, but remember your training, and when you have to improvise, you'll know what to do if you remember your training. Get out of your car and talk to the people, because sometimes the people will be your greatest supporters when you need them. So again, congratulations on the beginning of what I hope will be an extraordinary career with the Pasadena Police Department. God bless each one of you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for choosing the city of Pasadena. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for choosing the city of Pasadena to start your career or even in your career and or transfer over to your career. We really appreciate all those that have decided to choose the city of Pasadena. As the mayor mentioned, it is a profession that is extremely admirable, and especially in these times, it is a profession that is looked at and highlighted and looks for flaws, etc. I think that as long as each and every one of you continue to keep that smile that you came to the podium with and the professionalism that you came to the podium with, no matter what an individual that you encounter is going through in their day, as long as you're treating them in a professional manner, I know that each and every one of you are going to make it home safely. It's also important to remember that as one of your colleagues mentioned, it was a great comment. I forget the officer's name. Some of the names kind of chopped in and out, but he said it's all about community relations, and part of that is exactly what Councilmember Kennedy mentioned: is getting out of the car, shaking hands, and getting to know one another, getting to know those neighbors, especially when you're driving down the street and you see them, wave, say hello, because at the end of the day, you know, for the past 18 months, a lot of us have been locked up because of COVID, et cetera, and it's been a long time since, you know, some of those basic social norms have been exercised. And so I think coming from you, our professionals, our greatest city, some of our greatest city employees, you guys can continue to remind people, you know, to say hello. And I will ask my neighbors and my residents to do the same when they see you. So with everything you do, you know, use love, care, and compassion and respect for each and every human being. And I wish each and every one of you well. I wish all of your families well. And the best wishes to you. And thank you so much for wanting to serve and your willingness to serve the city of Pasadena.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. And I don't know, what do you say? You're released, or thank you all, and good luck to all of you. Okay, that brings us to our agenda, and we are going to start with the first item on our agenda, and old business. Chief, I think you want to move to the back of the agenda and see if we get to you, or you want to step up?
I was joking with the officers that they're going to try and drag it out a little longer so that we don't get present.
I think we bumped the fire chief like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. So.
Good evening, Mayor, members of public safety, and city staff. Would it be okay if we started with the award first? We do have an American Heart Association representative in the waiting room.
That's item 2.
Absolutely. Item 2. So we'll go to item 2, American Heart Association Pest and Fire Gold Plus Award recipient.
And we have Ron Loomis here with the American Heart Association, and I'm going to turn it over to him if that's okay.
Mr. Loomis, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Ron Loomis. I'm the Senior Manager for Quality Improvement for the American Heart Association. I actually lead the team in the Western 10 states and Guam. I'm honored to be here, even remotely, to recognize the City of Pasadena. So with the American Heart Association, we have an award that we do. It's called the Mission Lifeline EMS Recognition Award. Really, Mission Lifeline is looking at systems of care. So it's not just what your fire department's doing, it's not just what the dispatch is doing, not just what the hospital is doing, but it's everything together. And doing it together successfully for the best outcomes for your patients, for the patients in the community. So Los Angeles County Emergency Medical Service Agency submitted a team application that included all the different fire departments within LA County, and Pasadena is one of them. But really, it was looking at the data for the past year for all of 2021. And to achieve this award, the group had to achieve 75% or better in each of the measures. And because it's a gold award, it's actually been for over 2 years that they've been achieving this. So our first measure is looking at percentage of patients that had chest pain or chest pain type symptoms or coronary symptoms that are over the age of 35 that received a 12-lead EKG. One of the first things that needs to be done for a patient that has chest pain and to identify if it's a particular type, it's called a STEMI, it's a particular type of heart attack, and it's being done promptly. The second measure is percentage of patients that had that then notified the hospital within 10 minutes that they actually have a heart attack patient with the STEMI EKG, and that they'd be bringing them to the hospital pretty rapidly. And then the third measure to achieve the gold award is from the first medical contact to the actual opening of the vessel in the cath lab in 90 minutes or less. So this is truly where it takes the entire system of care. So from the time the paramedics walk on the scene and are at the patient bedside to assessing the patient, doing the EKG, notifying the hospital, transporting the patient to the hospital, and the patient getting all the way from the front door of the hospital to the cath lab, and blood now being returned, blood flow being returned to that portion of the heart that it had been stopped in 90 minutes or less, which is really a tremendous orchestration. I'm from the hospital, I'm a nurse, but seeing that happen, to be able to have the engagement from the fire department in not only the identification of the heart attacks, but also promptly doing their assessment and notifying the hospital and getting the patient there rapidly is essential. And then because the county also in Pasadena did one step further, and we have what's called our Plus Award. So it's an extra measure that they did, and it's for those patients that received a 12-lead EKG, was it within 10 minutes of the patient arrival. So again, timely. So walking in, because if you've ever listened to dispatch, you get all sorts of interesting comments of, oh, I'm just dizzy, and they walk in and it's like, it's a whole other aspect of what's there. But truly what this means is the patients that are having heart attacks and knowing that parts of the heart are dying every moment that they're waiting to have that blood flow return. Your paramedics, your fire department are quickly assessing that patient, identifying these patients, and working directly with the hospital to have a seamless transition to get that person directly to the cath lab as soon as possible. It allows patients to be able to have another Christmas and be able to be with their family, or to talk about football games and who's going to win the next USC football game. And so on behalf of the American Heart Association, we'd like to congratulate the city of Pasadena and Pasadena Fire for their arena. So I'll hand it back to you, Chief Augustine.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Loomis, thank you. I'm going to take this opportunity, if I can, to brag a little bit about our department and some of our members.
Please.
So this honor, first off, it's really an honor to be here tonight to accept this award on behalf of the men and women of the Pasadena Fire Department. Their commitment to excellence in cardiac care literally saves lives and improves quality of life within our community. This award is a very impressive achievement and one that I have a sincere appreciation for. In my former employer, we spent 3 years and literally hundreds of hours to achieve this award. And I came to Pasadena, and in typical fashion, known for their fantastic care, they're already receiving this. And it's not one and done. You have to maintain these measurements every year and resubmit. Outside of Pasadena Fire and LA County, less than 10% of the fire departments across the state of California can achieve this award. This award is challenging to achieve because you not only need to provide top-level care and have top-level training and equipment, but we also need to measure it to our outcome data. And that means sharing data with our hospital staff. And in many facilities and many jurisdictions, that's a challenge to do. That data is what validates that our care is spot on and we're actually hitting the mark. The members of the Pasadena Fire Department train rigorously to learn and perfect our top-level care, especially in the cardiac realm. But behind the scenes, there's 2 outstanding professionals that work tirelessly to ensure the Pasadena Fire Department maintains the highest level of training and education. These 2 individuals are a large reason as to why we're here tonight accepting this award. And I'd like to introduce them and have them come up. The first I'd like to recognize is Jenny Van Slyke, and neither of them know they're getting honored tonight, by the way. I just asked them to come. Jenny is our EMS coordinator, and her commitment to excellence for our fire department is unwavering. She's an employee of Huntington Hospital and is also on contract with us 20 hours a week. I'm hoping to make that full-time in the near future because we sure have a need for her. We're honored to have her here, and she is by far top-notch when it comes to EMS education and training. The second is Dr. Yang. Dr. Yang is an ER physician at Huntington, and he's also our fire service medical director. He loves our members, and he considers Pasadena Fire Department his family. The 2 of them push our members to strive for excellence in everything we do to ensure we provide the community with the best chance for a positive outcome. I want to thank each of you for your commitment to Pasadena Fire, and Mayor and Public Safety for your commitment to Pasadena Fire.
Thank you. Doctor, would both of you like to come up? And you're in a different blue suit than you usually are, but Jenny, you guys want to?
I prefer my scrubs usually. But no, thank you, Chief Augustine. This is surprising. I thought we were just coming to hear about this. But I'm here very simply. I take care of patients. It's my job. And I've been in Huntington for 22 years now. I live here in Pasadena. And for me, as a physician, anything that can help patients can make a big difference. And maybe it's selfish, but when the patients come well treated, it makes my job easier to save them. So my goal is all about patient care, being able to bridge what happens pre-hospital and in the ER is just amazing. Lives we can save just one at a time. Just amazing. So for me, it's my goal as a physician, right? I ultimately want our patient population to be healthy, safe, and if they're sick, I expect them to get the best care. I can really do something because I can kind of do the continuum, at least until they get to the ER, where I can personally take care of them. But I think I can make a difference. I'll say this: working with Jenny has been amazing. I've been medical director for 4 years now. It's really changed my outlook. I've been doing ER for a long time, but the kind of emergencies, the pre-hospital paramedics take care of is just so different. I'm spoiled with what I can do, and these brave men and women, what they can do and try to figure out before they actually get to me is amazing. And the situations they get into, they're come on a gurney to me. They have a full amount of houses, streets. It's just amazing what they do. So thank you for introducing me to EMS, because we all learn it when we're trained, but to actually live it is helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Metzline. I too been at Huntington. I think we started about the same year, about 22 years. But I've been with the fire department as a contracted nurse educator for the last almost 10 years, and live also in the city of Pasadena. In fact, right next door to some folks that love you very, very much. I hear about it often.
Thank you.
And it's been an honor to work with Pasadena Fire, and a complete surprise tonight. So I love patient care, and I miss it tremendously. And I think the one thing that keeps me going is the fact that I get to help teach these amazing men and women, and then they get to go out and do this patient care and see it every day, how amazing they are. We just started the lateral recruit tower, and even from day 1 to day 3, they're just, it's just amazing how eager these people are to learn and do the best they can for patient care. So it's just it's an honor.
Well, thank you for helping us out, both of you. We can only afford one of you, doctor, so we'll take Jenny for the moment. I hope you do come to work for the department full time. And thank you both for all that you do, not just at the hospital, but with our department.
Thank you.
You look good in the Pasadena Fire Department outfit, both of you. Uniform. Thank you.
And Ron, thank you for your time tonight also.
It was an honor.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we go on to item 1 now?
Absolutely. Thank you and congratulations, everyone.
Chief?
Good evening. We'll transition now into fire department retention and local area recruitment update. Tonight, I'm going to try and tackle 3 complex issues in this one presentation. And some of these are deliverables specifically from public safety and also Councilmember Kennedy when I presented out at our last fiscal year. These are 3 complex issues that fire departments across the country right now are trying to tackle. And I come here in front of you not with all of the answers, but with having done a lot of research and best practice and recommendations moving forward. So tonight we're going to talk about recruitment, we're going to talk about retention, and then we're going to branch out on our local area recruitment efforts. So I'm going to start with our current vacancies. And we currently, what you see on this graph is 14 vacancies. Although we just started a lateral firefighter academy on Monday, which takes us down to 7 vacancies, which is single digits for the first time in almost 15 years. I want to celebrate that, but by the end of this year, we will be back into double digits. We have multiple members in backgrounds with LA County and Orange County and also some expected retirements. But there's been some tremendous effort in correcting our vacancy gap here in the last 9 months. So we did a 3-year cost analysis of our recruit academies and what we're spending. And we're averaging close to $1 million per recruit academy, which is a substantial investment into Pasadena Fire Department. And that dollar figure is important as I come to future slides as we're watching people walk out the door. So what are our main causes of attrition? And at the end of this presentation, if you allow me to, I'd like to come back and talk a little bit more on the efforts we've done to tackle some of these issues. But employee retirements, we have a large wave of retirements, but that's not the areas that I'm most concerned about. It's the employees that we're paying top dollar to train, outfit, and then having them walk out the door shortly after they start with Pasadena Fire. So some of the many causes, there's high demand for paramedics in California. If you look up and down the state, almost every department is in a hiring crunch. And that really goes back to the Great Recession, where most departments had a hiring freeze for many years. Then you tack on retirements, and we just departments can't catch up. So they're literally stealing employees from each other. And I'll give you a couple good examples. LA County is trying to hire 500 firefighters in the next 2 years. Right? A vast majority of those are going to come at the expense of smaller departments like Pasadena. Some other causes of attrition are competitive opportunities in Southern California due to the longer wildfire seasons, high forced position coverage, and overtime shifts due to vacancies, which really has caused a high level of employee burnout. And I'll talk about that when it comes to injuries, workers' comp rates, which we have struggled with for many years. And then lack of consistent recruit academies from prior years. And that's really where it gets us in trouble, where if we miss 1 year, we fall behind and we're quickly 10, 20 vacancies. And for a smaller department, that's a challenge for us to catch up. So this slide really shows a lot for me. When we look at the resigned versus retired, we're 2 to 1. And in that resignation slide also includes Recruit Academy, but in general, we're losing 2 employees to resignation for every retirement right now. And that is dollars that are walking out the door for Pasadena Fire. When we look at what that cost is, and really we're taking an average cost of around $60 for an overtime rate, and the average annual hours per employee of 2,912, and that gets us the almost $3 million cost. Some will argue that it's cheaper to pay overtime, and if we look to the exact dollar, it may very well be. Our issue in Pasadena Fire is that we've overdone that, and so our workers' comp rates are extremely high, staggeringly high actually for a new chief walking in, and then the amount of burnout, mental health claims, and employees that are resigning just because they're not getting the time off that they need. That is a cost that's a little bit harder to put a dollar figure to. So I wanted, one of my deliverables was to provide an update on our demographics, both with as compared to the city employees, and then the fire department. And while we have much work to do, we're making progress. There's one very glaring issue here that should stand out to all of us, and it's our percentage of female firefighters. We are exactly where the national average is. Just under 5% is the national average, and Pasadena Fire is better than that. Unfortunately, like departments up and down the state, we're all trying to attract and hire female firefighters. And I'll come to some of our efforts here in the near future, but we want, just like our police officer friends, we want to do a better job representing the community that we serve. So as we come into some of our local area recruitment programs that are existing, and then I'll talk about newer proposed programs. Coming into Pasadena Fire, I'm actually very impressed with the amount of outreach and recruitment programs that are already in place and the efforts that have been undertaken. What we need to do is continue to build on those, formalize them, and get out of COVID so that we can continue to interact more with the community. We have an Explorers program, a girls camp, auxiliary program, Ems Reserve Program, and we've been working on proposing a new programs with a partnership with PUSD and a paramedic internship program. I'll talk more in depth about both of those. One of the things that I want to talk about is you're going to see that we put a cost to every single one of these programs. And it's important to note the cost because none of these programs are funded, nor do we have a dedicated budget for our recruit academies. And so as we want to continue to grow these, there's only so much money available. And while our team is doing great work, I'm going to show you some of the areas that have become a gap for us. Our end goal for these programs is to be like a ladder. And we're going to provide our community, the youth, starting in their early teens, 13, 14, 15, every rung of the ladder so that they can climb that ladder and get to the top. And the top of that ladder is employment capacity fire. It's important. If we miss a rung, we're going to lose students and future employees. So it's very, very important for us that we don't miss a rung. And what Pasadena Fire has and is proposing to have is to ensure that we have every rung of that ladder. So as we look at our Explorer program, the target is age 15 to 20, and we're really looking to provide career guidance and development programs to educate the Pasadena youth about the fire service and Pasadena Fire Department. It's been in operation for 25 years and is an extension of the Learning for Life career education program. It occurs on a bi-weekly basis for 5 hours each shift, which is about 120 hours annually. Our current funding has been through the Pasadena Fire Foundation and our personnel that are on duty. One of the areas of a gap that I recognized when I came in the door is we use our on-duty personnel, and they're supervising sometimes 30 members, 30 youth, and then our employees who are on duty get a 911 call, and we leave 30 youth unsupervised. So we quickly recognize that we can't continue to do that. So we put together the recommendations of what we need to do to ensure that we have staffing there to properly oversee and run these programs. The second is Girls Camp, and this is a 2-day hands-on event to introduce the equipment and techniques used in firefighting and emergency medical services. And this probably is one of the most exciting programs I've seen. And it's what's neat about it is that you have female fire personnel traveling up and down the state, Oregon, Washington, and they're helping other agencies. And so you'll have firefighters from Washington come down to Pasadena and train and get back for a weekend showing female youth what it is to be a female firefighter. And then Pasadena firefighters, female firefighters will travel to Sacramento and do the same, because what we recognize is there's a huge gap in the number of females firefighters. And if we're not working collectively and attacking them while they're young to get them interested, we're never going to improve those numbers. Again, so we put a small cost to that so that at the end of this program, you'll see what our total cost of all of these programs would be if they were fully funded. And again, I come back to Pasadena Fire Department is right at the national average of less than 5% of our females, of our employees are females. It's an area we have to do better in. Our auxiliary program provides an opportunity to acquire skills and gain insight into the fire service while preparing for a career in the fire department. And this is a great one because what we're doing is it's that next level. We're taking youth that are 18 and older, and what we're actually doing is assigning them to a fire station. They get to do ride-alongs. They get to be immersed even a little bit more into what the fire service is all about. And so it's that next rung in the ladder. You notice that this is a smaller number because what we're doing is we're really focusing our intention now individually on a smaller group of people that we're going to funnel up into our programs. And they get a tremendous amount of hands-on training in the privilege of being in a fire station and working with our crews. My favorite is our Ems Reserve Program. This is a 40-year-old self-governed organization founded to augment emergency medical and disaster service with EMT certified volunteers. They operate as a third person on our ambulances, but you will see them all over our community. If you come to the Rose Bowl, they're helping in the medical tents. They're helping staff additional medical carts. Really, with the size of Pasadena Fire and the amount of special events, we would not be able to handle the level of need without our EMS Reserve Program. Some of these are members of the community that want to be in the fire service, and it provides them great experience. And others are members of the community that just want to give back and serve in some fashion. And it's very honorable. Again, it's a very small cost and it's really a uniform cost is what we propose for a funding. As we move into proposed new recruitment programs, we're looking at partnerships with PUSD. And my two deputy chiefs and myself were just at John Muir today, spending time with some of their youth. This program will allow fire service personnel to provide information about the fire service and career opportunities to high school students. It will occur on a bi-weekly basis in 2-hour intervals during the school year, and will provide 112 staff hours per grade level. So a total of 448 staff hours across 4 grade levels, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. And then the staffing allows for actually us to assign members to be consistently involved with the high schools. And we believe that this is a fantastic opportunity to get our youth at the high school level interested and understand that the fire service is something that they can do. I think today, in about an hour and 10 minutes, we convinced 30 youth from John Muir that the fire service is something that they all could do. And I'm convinced there's at least 7 or 8 of them that will follow through and continue to be interested in it. It's that time and effort that we spend with our community that really will pay dividends in our future. So this next one is, I'm bringing this forward as a proposal. It was one of the most positive programs from my previous employer. As Pasadena Fire, like many departments up and down the state, is struggling to find qualified paramedics, this is the final rung of the ladder in which we hire candidates who have attained some of the other pre-qualifications. We hire them in what I'll call a pre-hire status, and they work for us 20 hours a week. And those 20 hours a week, they're riding third person on an ambulance, gaining essential skills, honing their skills, and at the same time, we're putting them through paramedic school. And while they're going through paramedic school, they also are utilizing the resources of Pasadena Fire and the expertise of our paramedics and maybe even our nurses and physician to help them be successful through paramedic school, so that at completion, we now have a person who's a licensed paramedic, and we enroll them in our next Fire Recruit Academy. So our eligibility list and target age range is at 18 to 25. We've walked with them now from age 14 through 18 to 25. We've provided them every rung of the ladder, and we're providing them the assistance of that last rung to become a paramedic. And upon completion of their paramedic training, they would enter into our next academy. And so as we put a cost to this, we're looking at what would hiring 12 half-time FTEs look like in a CSW paramedic intern position. And so we looked at all the different paramedic programs. We really wanted to have a partnership with a community college, a local community college, and we looked at El Camino. We have a partnership with Paramedic Training Institute, PTI, and then we looked at if we were paying an hourly rate of $18 an hour for a pre-hire, and they worked 20 hours a week, 40 hours a pay period, what that would look like. And while this is the largest burden and a new program, non-budgeted, what we're doing is we're saying about every 12 to 18 months, we have a ready workforce of paramedics that are now ready to enter into our academy. And that doesn't mean that we don't hire from other outside hiring lists that we have in the past, but what we've been able to do is put a focus on local area recruitment and hiring from within our community. So in summary, and I didn't forget, I'd like to go back to page 4 when I get done here. The vacancies and high attrition rates are caused by a variety of factors. Our staffing issues are immediately addressed, and we've been working really hard with both a recruit and a lateral academy, but we must look to the future of doing something different. Otherwise, we're going to be continuing to pay high dollar academies to watch people walk out. So what I did was put a total program cost for all of the programs from Explorer, Girls Camp, Auxiliary, EMS Reserves, PUSD, and a paramedic internship program. And what I would like to do, if possible, is to go back to page 4 to talk about the reason that we're losing employees and talk about the things that we've done in the last 8.5 months to correct this. And I have it branched out into 2 different columns, things that are entirely in Pasadena Fire Department's control and things that are outside of our control. And most of these are zero cost items. Making sure our employees feel valued, establishing a fair paramedic rotation so that our paramedics who are working hard on the rescue ambulances can also improve their skills on fire engines and ladder trucks. Thank you to council as you approved a reduction of probation from 18 months to 12 months so that we can be competitive up and down the state with other jurisdictions. We've worked hard on improving communication to our members, working very hard to have timely hiring. Thank you to our HR, city HR. They've been great partners with us. Ensuring that there's adequate employee development so that an employee who walks in the door and graduates, they know that whether they want to be an engineer, a captain, a battalion chief, or the fire chief of the department, there's a clear roadmap for them and how they're going to be supported to do so. And then most importantly, we make sure that there's adequate staffing so that they can have a balance between serving the community of Pasadena and also being able to be present with their family. There's only one that's outside of our control. And thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. You approved a MOU recently for PFFA. We're losing members because of wages and benefits. And it's tough sometimes to compete with the larger agencies that are paying substantially more. We're doing everything we can to make sure that the areas that we can compete with and the no-cost items are making a difference. And I want to thank you for supporting our members in the pay and benefits also. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Good presentation and good programming. At $1 million per recruit class, I can see why we would look at the other end of the spectrum and see how we can put together a program to cut down on those costs, because that's an expensive recruit class at $1 million. And how many employees average per recruit class?
That average of $1 million is based on the 15 to 20 recruits.
15 to 20.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the full cadre of training officers to train them.
Okay. Well, I'm certainly supportive of moving in this direction. If you tell us that this is what's going to bring us the best department, that combined with, of course, better wages and all the benefits that come along with it to compete with other departments. But certainly, if you tell us this is what is going to bring us the best department, keep us the best department in the country, then I'm certainly supportive.
I am so proud of being the fire chief of Pasadena Fire. This department is top notch. It really is. We have to continue to support and make sure that we have adequate staffing. We can't not do that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And let me ask, so process-wise, would this come to the full is this just a preview for the budget discussions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to commend the chief and the deputy chiefs and the rest of the team in the fire department. This is the first time I've ever seen this level of analysis on what's driving our high vacancies, what the costs associated with various attrition is. We've known for a long time that the way we do our academies is terribly expensive. And so I really appreciate how the chief and his team has put together some recommendations that I think ultimately will yield savings. In the near term, though, as illustrated, there's a cost. I think it would be appropriate that this become part of the budget discussion for next fiscal year. And so I think that's when you'll next see it. But I think the chief makes a compelling case that we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, that if we implement these suggestions, some or all of them, perhaps some have to happen over time, but ultimately we can reduce our overall costs because it's all about the attrition and keeping our staffing levels high. So it is appropriate for this to be worked into the recommended budget for FY23.
Okay, so I'll look for it there as part of the budget discussions. And certainly it's something that you want to highlight in your presentation to the full council during those budget discussions. Mr. Kennedy is up in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo the comments that the mayor has already made. Chief, you have been a breath of fresh air, hopefully internally and externally for the police department. And so again, we say in all earnesty.
Fire department likes him too,
thank you.
John.
Sir?
Fire department likes him too. You said police department.
Oh well. Thanks, Mayor. Fire. And I do want to make sure that I reiterate, I'm talking about the fire department. Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions. As it relates to the facilities where our personnel is housed, what impact does that have on, what impact does that have?
It's a great question. It has a large impact. And it comes down to pride and ownership and the ability of feeling valued by the community. And I don't think any of us would disagree that many of our stations need work, but the level of commitment from city staff in the just since my time, we have 4 out of our 8 fire stations are being invested in with remodels and upgrades. And I think, Councilmember Kennedy, that will go a long way.
Okay. What is the best practice related to, and I'll be quick, what is the best practice related to separate sleeping quarters and restrooms, showers, and all of that for female and male firefighters?
If we go back 40 years where many of our fire stations were built, there was a common kitchen day room area and a common dorm area. And what I would say best practices are today is to ensure that we have separate living quarters for as many individuals as possible, and specifically separate living quarters for our female firefighters, as well as ensuring that there's female restrooms, adequate facilities for females in the fire stations also.
And we are rapidly moving in that direction, or are we already there?
We are already there in some fire stations, and we are moving in that direction in others.
Does that have any impact on recruitment of female women to the fire department?
I think it probably has more of an issue on retention, because many of our females won't necessarily see our fire stations until they graduate. But to your point, it's very important that we have separate female locker rooms and female restrooms and sleeping quarters. And that is a work in progress here in Pasadena, but we do have a ways to go.
Okay. Mayor, I hope that we can give greater consideration as it relates to the CIP to have this discussion there when it comes up I think sometime next year. And I'd like to just ask a quick question, Chief Augustine, about our relationship with Pasadena City College. What is that relationship?
It's a good relationship, but in regards to, are you specifically asking in regards to training?
EMS, many academies, a way in which we can dovetail into PCC to attract extraordinary recruits.
I would like nothing more than to be able to partner with PCC in our own backyard, rather than going outside to other agencies. We support members going to other fire academies, Verdugo and Rio Honda. PCC does not have a fire academy, but that doesn't mean that we can't be working to partner in other areas, EMT and paramedic programs, as well as just being better partners. So yes, we have a relationship and it can be better.
Is there any cost benefit for the kind of organization we have, which is stellar, to really build our own academy at Pasadena City College?
Councilmember Kennedy, I'd want to do a cost analysis for you, which I would be happy to do, and then be able to come back and give you a more informed decision on that. I will say that the recent support with us being able to have an academy at Jefferson has been fantastic for us. That's been a great plus. We've been able to do both recruit training and in-service training, and it's in a central location, which has been very helpful.
Fantastic. And then I'd like to ask the mayor, no, I'd like to ask the city manager, are ARPA funds available to fund the full measure of what Chief Augustine has requested, which is less than $500,000, I think?
Councilmember Kennedy, let me answer that a couple of different ways. With the first round of ARPA funding, the council allocated money towards fire station projects in the CIP that we weren't able to do previously because we had to realign the Measure I money. We can certainly use ARPA money for that. We are also able to, sort of in a roundabout way, return it to the general fund, and the programs that the chief has outlined would be general fund costs. Of course, those would be ongoing costs. I will say, to give credit to the chief, he's also looking at what the department can do to increase the revenues that it generates through our EMS program. And so I suspect that the chief will be able to find the dollars that he's going to be requesting through enhancements to our program. So I think there will be a way, one way or another, to meet what is, in the grand scheme of it all, fairly modest requests of the chief.
Yeah, I'm impressed, Mayor, that the chief has come to us with something that's extremely reasonable at $376,000. So I hope that we'll help him get there. He's a new chief. I think we have to give him enough support to be successful, and I hope we'll have that opportunity, City Manager. Okay, again, I apologize for confusing you with the Pasadena Police Department, but I will say that I have heard from folks internally and externally that under your leadership, we're moving in the right direction, Chief. So I would just simply say attaboy and keep it going. And thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Look for the red patch, Mr. Kennedy, instead of the blue patch. Well, let's, oh, Mr. Hampton?
Yeah, I'll be very brief because I know that we have other things on the agenda, but I want to say echo the comments of Councilmember Kennedy, Chief. Really, I have to say, this program and what I'm seeing, this education piece of it is exactly what I think our Public Safety Committee over the years has been requesting and asking for. So, Chief, you're right on. The partnership with PUSD and working on something with PCC is definitely something that we should be looking at and seeing if PCC would be interested. I know that PCC a while back, I don't know if they're still looking into this or not. They were looking at going out for a bond. I don't know if they're going to still do that or whatnot, but there may be also opportunity with some of the dollars that PUSD recently got with their bond, and I'm trying to reutilize one or two of the school sites in conjunction with PCC to have this type of training with PUSD students. This is dead on. This is exactly what our city needs. This is going to produce a chain of Pasadena residents to work in our fire services and our paramedics as well. So, Chief, I just want to say, you've paved the yellow brick road to success, and I want to make sure that it is successful, and whatever funding the city needs to pitch in, or if we all need to advocate with the mayor, to PEF, Pasadena Educational Foundation, et cetera, to get everybody on board to support this. This is the right idea. This is the right mindset. And I see extremely, our fire department is already successful. As far as when I see the group as a whole, I'm always like, wow, it's always great to see our fire department and how diverse our fire department is. But this is going to add that feather in the cap that's going to bring our local residents involved and locals to say, I am now the chief of Pasadena Fire, and I was born and raised, and I went to PHS or John Muir or Blair or Marshall or any other, or Chandler or any other school in the city of Pasadena. So I just have to say that I was, the first time I read this, it warmed my heart, and it was really good to see. And I just want to be supportive of this work so that we can get this work going, because this work is supportive of our community. And so I have one question, Chief, and the question is, have we talked to the Foothill Workforce Development Board with help with, or even CDBG dollars for those students that you are engaging at our high schools? So Foothill Workforce Development Board with dollars for, see how we could participate in giving dollars to the fire department for training. And then my other question was PUSD to see what dollars or resources they could help with.
Councilmember Hampton, I'm not familiar with the Foothill Workforce Development Board, but I will research that. We also, we do get 88 funds, and we'll also participate in the SIFJAC program, but I'm not familiar with this, but I will definitely, my team and I will do some research and look into it.
Councilmember, I think as it relates to the Workforce Development Board, should we be fortunate enough to be able to fund these programs and put them in place, once they're established, I think that's when it would be appropriate for the Workforce Development Board to assist us to see if they are eligible uses for the federal grant to send people into the program and help fund the cost. I think until they're up and running, and we can check with the staff over there, but I suspect until it's up and running, they're not able to evaluate whether it's a permissible federal expense.
Thank you so much, City Manager. Yes, the reason I asked about the Foothill Workforce Development Board, of course, I am the representative from the city on the Foothill Workforce Development Board, and we do actually partner with organizations prior to them, or as they're writing their programs, and we are able to give funds during, well, the minute the program is implemented, we are able to give funds. So that's the reason why I was asking But I agree, City Manager Steve, that you know, once you get the program up and running, we should, you know, definitely go out and see what help we can get from the Foothill Workforce Development Board, but also maybe a little prior to that to see if there are any federal funding that can maybe even help steer the way you put it all together as well. Does that make sense? And then PUSD, have you talked to PUSD about potentially, or I mean, I know that this is, we still have some years out, but potentially maybe using one of the school sites as, it sounds like you're already doing that now, but another one of the school sites with some of the dollars that they have to retrofit to use it as a training facility?
We would love to be able to explore any options for training facility. I feel really fortunate being able to step in here and as my team for the last 20 years has been looking for a training facility, and within the first few months to be able to start using Jefferson has been really a blessing for us. But we're open for any partnerships, especially if it's a facility that we can also do training with the youth there on site. That would be wonderful.
And council member will be coming to council on the 22nd for the lease agreement for Jefferson School for city use, including the fire department and the library, and perhaps even the PAL program for the police department. That would have an initial 5-year term. I don't think that the district would use any of their bond funds on a property they're not using for schools. But if the city can get use of a school facility, we'll see how it works out over that initial period. Perhaps it's something that we would entertain a much longer arrangement. And we do have numerous needs in the city, and having a location such as Jefferson, it's well suited in terms of where it's situated in the city. So it could be a good option for us for a number of uses.
And we.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Hampton.
No, go ahead, Mayor. I don't want to stop your thought.
Well, we did try to acquire that property from the school district, and we ended up with a lease agreement. So I think the city manager is correct that it's going to be a tough pull to get them to spend dollars on a facility they wouldn't even give to us. That's vacant.
But I think if it's beneficial to PUSD students, you know, we could work out something with PUSD. They're our partner, they're our sister. I think, you know, we just got to keep trying at it. I know that this site, you know, PUSD has some financial issues right now, but I think moving in the future, you know, with some of the vacant school sites, which they have quite a few vacant school sites that are just being utilized here and there for 1 or 2 offices, would be beneficial to the school district, to the neighborhood, and the city.
Well, those vacant school sites don't belong to the district; they belong to the residents of Pasadena, and so more to come on that.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hampton.
I had one more question. Sorry, I had one question for the chief. So, Chief, right now, how many captains do we have? Are there vacancies in our captain position?
There are. We currently have 4 vacancies, and we have an existing eligibility list, but we've been so short. We also have 2 engineer vacancies, but we've been so short at the firefighter rank that we haven't been able to promote for those promotions, those vacancies, because we don't have enough firefighters. So when this lateral academy graduates December 16th, it's my intent to fill as many of those promotable positions as possible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chief. Keep up the great work. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Hampton, thank you.
One thing I'd like to add to the discussion is I'm meeting with the president of PCC in the not too distant future, and I'll certainly raise the prospect of a partnership and a program that would help us achieve our goals in the fire department. But, you know, as we're looking at rebuilding fire stations, one of the things that we ought to look to is I've looked at the challenge of rebuilding fire stations. I've noticed on the East Coast, they build housing under the fire stations as a means, or above the fire stations, I should say, as a means of subsidizing the cost of a fire station. And so as you, Chief, go around and assess our fire stations, one thing I'd like you to consider, and I'd like the city manager and staff to consider, is building housing above fire stations. You know, the Lake Street, the Station 33 is a perfect example of a fire station that could be on the first floor with senior housing in close proximity to Villa Gardens. That could be an interesting partnership to help subsidize the cost of a new fire station. So I think there are different models to be looked at. The East Coast model is one that attracted me because it does help to subsidize it, provide affordable senior housing, and at the same time, livable quarters for our firefighters.
It's a great idea. And I do have some experience in my previous employer. We even looked at, as we were building a soccer stadium, to put a fire station in there.
Yeah.
And so there's many options, but residential over a fire station is a fantastic use, and we are absolutely willing to explore that option.
At one point, Armando Gonzalez and I met with the church at Covenant Church next to 33s and talked about the parking lot behind them. And we had and Armando went as far as to come up with some design concepts. So we had agreement with Covenant Church to enter into a partnership with the fire department, they would put out an RFP for a housing provider and use part of their lot to rebuild that station, provide housing, and provide exactly what I'm talking about, a fire station under there that would be new and state of the art, and provide senior housing, because the density levels are there on South Lake Avenue. And so I would encourage you, Chief, to think in those terms where it's appropriate. East 33s is one of them. In East Pasadena, along Foothill would be another one. There are stations that could be rebuilt that we could have a partnership with, either with neighboring property owners or with nonprofit senior housing providers to offset the cost of the new station and provide some affordable housing. So I'll leave that thought with you, and hopefully you can come back to us and say, there's an opportunity there.
Excellent. Mayor Gordo, thank you. Thank you to all of you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Let's go to item 3, community service area reconfiguration. Oh, we do have public comment. I'm sorry. We have 3 public comments on this item. Why don't we do the presentation with a public comment? This is
if I may, sorry, sir. Before Commander Shute starts, so just a little bit about the community service areas reconfiguration. So as part of the recent police department's reorganization plan, the reconfiguration of the community service areas is designed to balance out calls for service throughout the entire city. This will result in the assignment of additional officers to each beat. With the addition of more officers to these beats, the new service area map is meant to give officers time to focus on the fundamental concepts of community policing. This will ultimately lead to better public safety services. And again, Commander Shute will provide the details during his presentation.
Commander?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Public Safety Committee. Please excuse the beard, except for the fact it's Movember, so
yeah.
We're fundraising.
Oh, yeah.
That's what that's for. But let me get into the presentation. If you can bring up my PowerPoint, please. So again, this is a community service area reconfiguration, and it's part of our restructuring of the police department. What we've done is there we go. What we currently do for our departments, I'm sorry, could you go back, please? Again, forward. We currently deploy in 5 community service areas. That's our current configuration, and our goal is to go to 4 service areas. And the main goal of this is to add officers to each service area by reducing from 5 to 4, and also to divide the current Northwest Community Service Area 2 boundaries, which is currently the most active community service area, and I'll get to that later on in the slides. What this does, it allows for more discretionary time for community policing, prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And as we know, the more community policing we have, the more prevention and intervention, the less enforcement we have to partake in. Next slide, please. Okay. So what we did was we looked at several community service area models, and what we used were the mapping, the citizens calls for service, strictly citizen calls for service, priority 1 calls for service. Priority 1 call for service is a call for service in which the event is in progress or just occurred, and there's an immediate threat to personal safety, which is a priority for us. And then also the average citizens calls per service area. Next slide. When we looked at those community service areas, those community service area models, we had about 7 to choose from. And by using David James, our crime analyst, he was able to show us how many calls for service we had. And as we moved those lines for the 4 community service areas that we wanted to switch to, the calls for service fluctuated. And what we came up with this Los Robles El Molino model that I will show you here in a minute. And we felt that that was the most advantageous for both the community and the police department. And what it does for us, it equals out the calls for service across service areas. The service areas will be separated by the 210 freeway for an easy dividing line. As you can see in our current 5 service area model, their dividing lines are north and south, are few and far between. It's not a consistent line as if we were to use the 210 freeway. We use the 210 freeway model for New Year's with the parade, and it works very well, that quadrant section. We use Lake Avenue in Colorado, except for the fact, or Lake Avenue, the freeway, but that we even looked at that service area model, but the calls for service were disproportionate, as you can see when I show you why we're going to the 4 from 5, but this was the best model for us to go to. This model is also a good balance for the watch commanders. We have 4 lieutenants who work patrol division, and each lieutenant is responsible for a service area. So that equals out 4 lieutenants for 4 service areas. Each one will have 1 responsibility of the service area, whereas right now we have 5, so 1 lieutenant is responsible for 2 service areas. It provides the best balance for coverage, 4 calls for service, the best service to the community as mentioned, and more discretionary time for the community service area officers. When we talk about more discretionary time, we talk about what Councilmember Kennedy was talking about when he said to get out of the car and shake hands and talk to the neighbors. If we have more officers and more service areas, there's more discretionary time for them to make those community connections, to engage the community, to be in the parks, to walk footbeat. We're not having to hire extra officers to walk footbeat in parks for special events. They can actually get out of the car and do that themselves because they will have that discretionary time. This is our current 5 community service area model. As you can see, we have service area 1, which is the west, 2 is the northwest, and 3 is central, 4 is east, and 5 is midtown. The northwest, although it looks not a small service area of 5, but it's rather small compared to the other service areas, has a majority of the calls for service, and that's what we're trying to do, is just to balance it out. And we split a little bit of the Northwest to be able to do that. Now, when you take the calls for service, what we used was the calls for service from 2018, which was approximately 69,000 calls for service. You may ask why 2018. 2019 had a smaller amount of calls for service, so we went with a higher amount. 2020 was an anomaly because of the pandemic. and then we're in 2021, which hasn't yet completed. So from 2018, we had about 69,000 calls for service from citizens, and you can see the equal count would be 13,775 calls for service. Now you look on the calls for service count, the actual calls for service in those service areas, and then if you look at the difference, you can see there's a big disparity between Community Service Area 2, which has a 25% increase above the average, and Community Service Area 5, which has a 13% increase above average. Community Service Area 5 has the police department in it, so that's a little bit skewed. That 13% increase doesn't always mean that we're actually responding to a call, because that accounts for calls that come to the police department. So it could be a child exchange where we really don't have to be involved, but it generates a call for service at the PD. If you look at the divided equals for priority service calls for service for priority 1 calls, 645, you can also see the big disparity. And again, priority 1 calls are calls that are in progress or just occurred, and there's immediate threat to personnel safety. So those are the ones that we really are concerned with. And when you look at Community Service Area 2, you have 932, which is 44% the average, above average. And again, Service Area 5 is also 7% above average. So our goal was, when we looked at these different service area models, was to equal that out, to make it equal amongst the service areas. And that's what we came up with here. So you have 4 service areas. Community Service Area 1 is the north, would be called the north. Community Service Area 2 is the east. Service Area 3 is south, and Service Area 4 is the west. And you can see the dividing lines, Los Robles and El Molino, and jogs over on California, then south on Marengo to the 110 freeway. And again, the north-south dividing line is the 210 freeway. Now, once we've done that, we've again took the amount of calls for service, again with the 2018 calls, and divided them equally, which would give us 17,219 calls, the equal count. And you can see that there's not much disparity between those in each of the service areas. So you have Service Area 4, which is the west service area. There's a 17% increase, but again, like Service Area 5, that's where the police department is. So there is going to be a slight increase there, but everything else is more equal than our current model that we go by. And when you look at priority 1 calls for service, Community Service Area 3 has a point, like less than 0.5% increase, and Service Area 4, again with the police department, has a 5% increase. So as you can see, by going to the 4 service area model, we are reducing, making it more equal, the calls for service equal amongst the area, which provides a better service to the citizens of the community. And then here's a side-by-side comparison. Our new 4 service area model on the left, and the current 5 service area model on the right. And as you can tell by the graph, the equal count for both priority calls and regular calls for service. And then here is the last slide. You have the council district overlay. And I think one of the most important things to talk about is what you heard from these 10 officers when they talk about how important the city is and how we treat the citizens of Pasadena and the Pasadena way. And I think that goes a long way to our community policing efforts. I think going to the 4 service area model is where we need to be, to add officers to each service area and to give them that discretionary time to make those community connections and get out out of their cars and into the neighborhoods. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commander. Questions? Comments?
I could add something to that, Mayor. So this new project we're talking about, it would not be implemented until June, and it will be part of our new CAT-RMS system, which will help us break down the boundaries and know exactly where to place the officers. And the other thing is, as part of that, like the fire chief talked about, is officer burnout. So the way it is now, we send a lot of officers to the busy areas of the city. Other officers are in areas where it's not so busy, and it's just not fair. So we're just trying to make it fair for all of the officers, so they have pretty much the same caseload. so to speak.
You're equalizing.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy? And then we'll turn to public comment.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Officer Commander Shute, did you already share why those whiskers are on your face?
Yes, I did, sir. It's for November. It's a fundraiser for the month of November for cancer awareness.
Excellent. And it shows that you and your team, in my view, have put in a lot of work as it relates to reconfiguring our community service areas. And I think this is good work. I'm sure you will test it out to see how it works. It seems like an equitable way to put the city in necessary categories for policing purposes. And I just would like to say that I thought it was a very good presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Why don't we turn to public comment, and then this is going to be implemented in June of 2022. And so there's a bit of time to prepare for this transition. We'll start with public comment. We have 3 items for signing, 3 parts, I should say.
The first public speaker is Hiram Cormier, followed by Alan Shea.
Mr. Cormier, welcome.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, looking at your presentation here, you guys keep referring to calls for service, community calls for service, but police are called because of, outside of racism or included with racism, I guess. There's a lack of investment in actual community services like education, housing,
indignant behavior of Victor Gordo is appalling. I see where the phrase all skin folks ain't kin folks is appropriate when a Black woman would applaud such inappropriate behavior. Now I see why the Me Too movement is so important to put this type of abuse towards a woman at a halt. It makes me think, how do you men treat Deputy Chief Cheryl Moody, Chief Perez, Steve Mermel, Victor Gordo? Do you treat Deputy Moody with equitable respect? Do you, as you would a white man? Mayor Gordo, your derogatory and demeaning words and actions towards me, a Black woman, is unacceptable. I plead with the new candidate, the new police candidate, please do not follow the leadership of immoral and dehumanizing treatment we have seen from the frontline leadership such as Chief Perez, Steve Mermel, and most recently showing their thorns, Mayor Gordo. Chief Perez said to me and others, the laws and policy of Pasadena are damaging to the Black people. That is why he didn't charge the officer who beat Chris Ballou with the crime, because law and policy allows the Pasadena police to beat and kill Black men. I submit to you, be right standing and restore morals and humanity. Care for
Your
human
time
life.
has expired.
Thank you.
Say his name, Anthony McLean.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. You know, coming to our meetings and injecting race, I would hope that we can all work together, but injecting race, injecting divisiveness into our meetings from Altadena is not at all constructive to this dialogue. You may think it is, Ms. Hughes, but I can tell you the people who live in this city don't believe that your injection of race, you're attacking people, you and Mr. Cormier attacking people and labeling everyone and that you see a white who disagrees with you, a white supremacist, is not at all helpful. You know, in Pasadena, we take those assertions seriously. In Pasadena, we are trying to do our best to protect everyone in this city, and the community I'm talking to doesn't agree with either one of you. And so thank you, Commander, for bringing this proposal forward. And Chief Moody for bringing this proposal forward. If there are any other comments on the part of my colleagues, we can take them out or we can move on to the next item. But again,
are there public comment?
We
Any
just
more
heard,
public
we
comments
just
or-
went through public comment.
Okay.
Mr. Hampton.
I did have a couple. Commander Shute, thank you so much for the presentation. I think the idea of what you've brought forth today could actually be extremely beneficial to building a better relationship with all of our community members. So thank you. I just have to say that you know, the bike patrols, the officers walking in the streets, waving, getting out of the car and saying hello is extremely important to building a better bridge in our community, because these are the questions that I'm asked. And as you know, you've been to a few or multiple of my community meetings. And also when I first got elected, I remember going on a ride along with you when you were the officer over special, what is it called? Special
events.
I'm sorry, events, special events. And your dedication to the city of Pasadena is tremendous and should be applauded. And as I've told you multiple times, when I asked about a stop sign and you and Officer Lieutenant
Dawkins,
Lieutenant Dawkins, you and Lieutenant Dawkins acted extremely quickly and were able to get Caltrans to install a stop sign, and that's community policing. It's when you do something that is not necessarily in your pure view of work, and instead of passing the buck, but saying, you know what, I'm going to try to figure out what we can do to make this happen. So I have said this multiple times publicly. I will say it at every single one of my community meetings because it was so impressive to me. And also all of my community members and neighbors were just excited to hear that our police department are, not, not even the job, that you guys are the public works people, were able to get something done with the help of Caltrans, just to be applauded. So I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for bringing this presentation today. I think it is important that, the public comments that have been made, everybody has a right to make their public comments. But I think at the core value of most public comments, they want better relations with the police. Or there are some people that say completely defund the police, which to me, it's a non-starter for me at all. I wouldn't defund the police because who else would answer the call of our community members when they're in need? And so I just want to say that the police department, from what I'm seeing, the presentation, trying to being part of our schools, engaging, not patrolling, but engaging and talking about the profession. Same thing with the fire department. They're definitely trying, and maybe they're not trying at the speed that everybody wants them to be trying it, but that's government. Government doesn't work at the speed that we all want it to work out. And yes, I know that there are accountability issues, and I will continue to spout those accountability issues. And I'm speaking in generals right now. But our police department is trying to be a better police department, and I support our police department in doing so. And when you bring presentations like this that are going to make our service more responsive, more community driven, more engaging to those that are in our neighborhoods, in a positive way, I can't help but say I 100% support this. And I know that my neighbors support the idea of you and your officers being more community oriented. So I want to thank you and applaud you for bringing this, and applaud you in the times, especially with everything that's going on in the public comments, that you guys are still professionals and you do your work. So I thank you for that. I also want to say to you, Commander, so I have asked for this multiple times, and the officers that patrol the neighborhood, they typically come to my community meetings, as you've been, and they show up and they say hello and they shake hands with the neighbors, and they talk to people, and some people they stay in communication with, which is awesome and great. For the service areas, have you thought about having some sort of, as we did one of my Christmas events, I'll say holiday events, it was a Christmas related thing. We had officers come and the neighbors shared a little bit about themselves. The officers shared something about themselves. And so have you thought about, when you put this model together, who will be serving in those neighborhoods by putting images up of these individuals? Or is that something that we can do? Because they are public employees. I was just wondering if, like our watch commanders, a picture of our watch commander, they're already in the public. So I was just wondering if there is a way to put our officers and who will be patrolling our neighborhoods and our streets, so that our neighbors and community members get to see their face as well, and they remember them when they're driving around, and they'll say, "Hey, easy way to get to know your officer in a way." Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can look at. I know for currently we put all of the watch commanders information out there as well, because they're the ones that are responsible for the service areas. But we could look at putting the service area sergeants and service area officers faces out there as well. That's something that I'd have to look at and talk with staff about. It seems reasonable.
Okay. And then my other question to follow up on that was, it's come to public safety a few times, and I know that it is definitely something that is, within the peer view of the police department. But I just want to reiterate that I know that a lot of times officers who are new on the force are used 1, 2, 3, and 5 as kind of like the training ground. Is that still where a lot of officers who just come onto the force get trained?
No, I wish we had that discretion, but we have the training officers are spread out amongst all the patrol teams. So
Okay.
especially now we have about 14 new training officer or 14 new trainees that will be in training. So we use whatever training officers we have available, and they're spread out through all the community service areas. So you're going to
Well,
see.
that's good to hear. I don't want that to change because I do remember that the previous chief Sanchez had mentioned that service area, which was service area 2, is where a lot of the officers are trained in, and I always had an issue with that because I thought it would be great to have more seasoned officers working with community members. Not that a new officer can't be great as well, but I think that sometimes the issues that we see have happened with younger officers on the force that just don't have the experience or haven't had the experience long enough to have the acumen on how to respond and react to people. And so that's it. I know that you guys do a great try your best job to train each one of your officers, but I just wanted to make sure that the area wasn't being used as like a training ground.
No, they're spread out through all the service areas, whether we have the 5 service area model or when we go to the 4 service area model.
If I may
Okay.
add to that, Mr. Hampton, not only are the trainees spread out throughout the city, they rotate throughout the city, they also rotate during different shifts, different times of the day. So they get a taste of how it is to work day shift, how it is to work evenings, and how it is to work weekends. So we try to make sure they get a variety of experiences before they go out on their own.
Okay, and in the community, in this new community, this I would say peace officer model, and I won't say patrolling model. This new community peace officer model, are the officers assigned to a area for a certain period of time or a long period of time, or are they all still rotating? Because that's one thing that would be really helpful, is to have officers that are familiar with the neighbors and built relationships before they get transferred out to East Pasadena or something, and now they're back at trying to build new relationships.
Yes, sir. So every year we sign up, and the officers have the ability, based on seniority, to sign up for what patrol team that they would like to work, and they'll be on that patrol team for a full year, and they'll be assigned a specific service area, as will the sergeants, as will the lieutenants. So yearly they may change somewhat. Officers that tend to stay in patrol tend to want to work the same service areas, so they become more consistent. But then we do have new officers coming on, and we have officers that will go to special assignments. But for that year period, you do have a lieutenant, sergeants, and officers assigned to the same area.
But so is there a big turnover every year, or would you say it's pretty consistent for a long period of time, or is it just 1 or 2 officers that get rotated out?
That just depends. It depends on promotions. It depends on if we have officers leave. It depends on how many new officers we get to come onto the department, because that opens up opportunities for officers who are working patrol to go to special assignments. So it's very hard to give you a percentage and or say how many, but it fluctuates.
So as you're looking at this new model, it would be great if there was more continuity or something that you could point at to say, okay, we have 10 officers that work this area, and 7 of them are going to be here at least for 2 or 3 years as they build relationships, and then we're rotating 3 out at a time. So it's not a complete change of guard, if that makes sense.
It completely makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we try to maintain the continuity of each service area. But there's some things that are unforeseen that we have to make those changes. But we're not continually trying to make changes. They just happen, and we have to adapt to those changes.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted just so you could be mindful of that as you roll this out. So thank you so much, Commander Shute. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hack.
Thank you, Commander Shute. Mr. Kennedy, you have your hand up? I can't tell if it was from the last time around.
Thank you, Mayor. No.
Okay. Well, thank you, Commander Shute. Thank you, Lieutenants, Officer, and thank you, Chief Moody, for bringing this. Anytime we're looking to better serve our community, then it's important that we listen carefully. I think the model and the rationale behind the model certainly works for me, and so I wish you well as we move to implementation in June of 2022. So,
Thank you, sir. We look forward to it, and thank you for your time.
thank you. Tough job. Thank you, Chief. Okay.
Chief, oh, I'm so sorry. I have one last question on that. Will this be going to the any of our commissions, like the Northwest Commission, et cetera? Because one of the public speakers, Alan Shea, who happens to be a commissioner, seems like he has some feedback he'd like to share with the police department. And it seems like there'd be an opportunity for the Northwest Commission to chime in on these type of changes.
Yes, sir, that's something we can do, and we may even, or the Police Oversight Commission may even want a presentation on this too. So we're open to doing that. Absolutely.
That's particularly the Oversight Commission. That's a good idea, so they understand how we patrol the city and how currently, and how we're looking to shift that to better serve the community. I think that's a very good suggestion, Chief. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Okay, thank you all. Lieutenant?
So,
oh,
sir, Mayor,
yes.
Council, Safety Committee, City staff, we have one more presentation, and that's on the drone.
Oh,
so
the
when we
drone,
talk
yes.
about we talk about servicing and policing the community, sometimes there's a need for enforcement measures. And so with that, what we're looking at,
This is item 4.
we're looking at, well, Lieutenant Mercado will be presenting the indoor use of the Loki Swat drone. This drone is used for barricaded suspects or other incidents during which entry into a building compromises the safety of community members or police department personnel. It is designed to assist in de-escalating potentially violent confrontations and to increase positive outcomes. The drone is also designed to greatly reduce the risk of gun-on-gun encounters between police department personnel and suspects who may be armed. With that, Lieutenant Mercado.
Great, thank you, ma'am, and good evening all. As soon as I get the PowerPoint up here. As the Deputy Chief said, my name is John Mercado. I'm a lieutenant of our SWAT team, and presenting with me tonight as well as Officer Ron Serino, who is our subject matter expert on the Loki Mk2 drone. And what we do want to talk to you about is our plans to acquire this drone. As the Deputy Chief did mention, this drone would be used for and exclusively for searching internally buildings and structures during barricaded suspect. I'm going to have Officer Serino take this out. So this backpack here, and for those of you who are watching online, he has the backpack that the slide shows all of the component parts. So if, Ron, if you will, he was going to show those in attendance here the component parts as well, so you can see it of what makes up the package. So Ron, if you would go ahead and take that out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for having me here. So this is the backpack that the actual operator would wear during the operation. Inside of it, we have the controller, which is called the DCS, which actually controls the drone. Inside the main compartment here, we have 2 sets of Lokis, 2 drones, in a foam padded backpack to keep it protected throughout the operation. This here is the actual aircraft itself. I would love to pass it around so you guys could actually go hands-on with it. It is lightweight, it is very convenient, and it's definitely durable. It also comes with 6 batteries that last up to 6 hours if perched. sorry, 6 hours and 16 minutes flight time, which we would get into. And that's what the operator would need to operate the drone. It's very simple. It's the system itself, a battery, and a controller to be able to operate.
How much more would it weigh with a battery?
So total weight with the battery would be just over 1 pound, so it'd be 1.2.
Wow.
So as you're passing that around and looking at it, our search began almost a year ago. On December 17th of last year, our patrol officers responded to 571 North Madison Avenue in regards to a family disturbance call. Our officers went inside the living room to begin to talk to the parties who called us when they were fired on from a suspect who was in one of the bedrooms of the house. SWAT was called, and we took over the situation and the call and began to work it. Ultimately, what we ended up doing was deploying our ground robot. We went upstairs, went into the house. Our operator was able to maneuver the ground robot to, as Murphy's Law would have it, just to the bedroom door of where the suspect was. And then because of the makeup of the house, we lost control of the drone. I'm sorry, control of the robot. We lost the feed. And the last we knew, we saw the subject laying on the bed inside that bedroom. Our negotiations had deteriorated at that point. He was no longer speaking to our negotiators. We ultimately, without having the eyes on and being able to get the ground robot into the bedroom to see if we could continue communication with the subject, we ended up having to send our operators into the room. When they made entry into the room, they found the subject laying on the bed on his back. His hands were to his side, and next to each hand was a handgun. We ended up also recovering a shotgun that was on the floor next to him. So he had 3 firearms, 2 ready to go, one of which he had fired at patrol officers that started this entire thing, and then the other 2. As we debriefed this incident as a SWAT team, we realized that we needed to find another complementary piece of technology that in the event we found a situation where we lost control of our ground robot, how could we remotely and more safely clear a structure without having to put our officers in harm's way and hopefully de-escalate or prevent an escalation of, as the deputy chief said, a gun-on-gun confrontation with the barricaded suspect. It took, again, almost a year. It's 11 months, and we found the Loki 2. You may notice it's Loki 2 because they did have their first model out. We were interested in that. Some of the other departments that were using the Loki, the first version of the Loki 1, there were problems that needed to be worked out by the manufacturer due to connectivity, the infrared capabilities, other things that they thought were going to work and didn't really work that well in real life. They revamped everything and put out the Loki 2, which we have field tested and trained with, and found it to be extremely useful. So a little bit of the features of it. From the outdoors, now it's a little bit misleading because our intention is to not fly this. This isn't an outdoor drone. This is, as you saw how small it is, it's 8 inches in length. As Officer Sereno said, it's almost 1.2 pounds with the battery pack on it. However, you can obviously, because it flies, you can fly it from the outside. So if it were used outdoors, not our intention, it has a range from where the operator's working it on the controller of just under or about 4,900 feet. Once inside, it has a range, an optimal range of about 984 feet to be specific. With the 6 different batteries, we're able to sustain flight for almost an hour and a half with sustained flight. You wouldn't normally use it that way. You can land it, and with a battery, you can land it, and in one battery, it'll give us 6 hours of video feed into the room that we put it in. A couple of the things that were really good and that they advanced from the first version is that the controller that's here, it was on that very second slide as well. It's a high contrast screen so that you can see it very clearly outside in the sun.
Before you needed to have more of a shaded environment, so they advanced that, made the screen far better. They also enhanced the technology and the software where, because there's two drones, if you land a drone inside of a house and you want to quickly deploy the second drone, it pairs very rapidly with the controller. The first one had some problems with dual pairing, and that was, again, a feature that they advanced. And the infrared technology, on this is phenomenal. It will light up a dark room, and on the controller, they're able to see it as if it's daylight, and see all of the things that are going on inside of that room. They can also dim the lights or dim the LEDs on the infrared if it gets too bright, if there's hot spots, you can change it to be able to have a better view of the room. We're able to do that from the controller as well. The other thing that was really neat that the other one didn't have is what they call a turtle mode. So on the first version, if it was knocked out of the air and fell the wrong way and the camera was upside down, you had two options: either holding the operator upside down by his or her ankles so they could look at the screen and make headers tells out of what they were seeing, or you just saw it upside down and that was it. And you had your best guess. With this turtle mode, if it lands upside down, it will automatically right itself so that the view coming back, the video feed coming back, is right side up and no longer left in an upside down configuration. One drone set, which comes in a backpack that you see here, that was on the slide 2, comes with 2 Loki aircraft, the controller, 6 batteries as mentioned before, 2 extra set of props to change out in case they get damaged, some extra ducts to keep the engine running well, and then again this hard case foam. It comes in at just over $10,800. We've identified general fund money for that within our budget at the police department, and in our use of it, we have thought seriously about checks and balances. So the drone would only be operated by FAA certified operators. We would ensure there are new post guidelines out for drones. We would comply with the drone, with the post best practice for drone use. We have just begun to get policies from other departments. We've reached out to 5 other major departments who are using these, gleaning from them their policies, and we will craft our own policy on the appropriate use of that, to include a tracking mechanism to be audited, and so the community can see how we're using it and that we are using it the way we said we would for internal searches during barricade situations. I have a video here just to kind of show you, and it's short, to show you what it looks like when the drone is actually being deployed. So what you see here is during a training video, the flight and maneuverability. It will switch back from the drone, a third-person view of the drone, and then the first-person view that the drone itself sees that we would see on the controller here. This is them just going into a bedroom. This is a replicated view of what we saw just a minute ago.
I'm so sorry. Mayor, we don't see this on Zoom.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hampton, you're not seeing it?
No.
Okay, it appears on our screen. Can we share the screen with the public? Maybe we can start it over because it's very interesting to see.
So as we work on that for when it does get shared with the public and you see it, I would just reiterate, you'll see 2 different views. You'll see a third-person view where the drone itself is in the air flying through a house. And then it will switch to that exact same footage, but from a first-person view of the drone. You will know the difference because you'll see a blue and green bar at the top and the bottom that indicates the view that the drone is pushing back to us versus the drone standing alone.
Under the bed. Mr. Hampton, were you able to see it this time around?
Yeah, that's my house. No, I'm just playing with y'all.
You got it very clean under your bed. Okay, next.
And that was it. It was only a minute long. So again, it just showed you the clarity of what we would be able to see from outside the house, from protection, and not have to put, like we did almost a year ago on Madison, our officers on and have a gun-on-gun confrontation as we did back on Madison. And again, fortunately, that one worked out well. No use of force was used, and we were able to take that suspect into custody. But this will help us eliminate those. So in closing, I do want to just again reiterate, we do believe that this technology will help us significantly reduce potential gun-on-gun confrontations during barricaded suspect situations. We also believe that it will continue to help us move the needle forward in our pursuit and our continued pursuit of industry best practices. So with that, I could take any questions.
If I just may add real quick, Mayor. Also, you know, we've had a couple of these barricaded suspects within this year, and you know, once someone is barricaded in their homes with potentially a weapon or what we believe to be a weapon, they're a huge risk to the community, to the officers, and to the residents that live in the neighboring area. So that's why we really believe in really pushing this. We think it's important. As you can see how the camera was, the drone was going through the house. That would be an officer walking through those unknowns in a residence. So we're looking at this again to not only save lives of the officers, but of potential suspects who are in the house armed, as well as the community, particularly residents that live in the surrounding area.
Yeah, no, I can see how this tool would be effective at protecting barricaded suspects, as well as officers, as well as people in and around the neighborhood. Let's start. We have 4 public comment cards, colleagues. Did you want to make your comments first or listen to the public comment?
Public comment, please.
Okay. Let's go to public comment.
The first speaker is Yadi, followed by Heavenly Hughes.
Hi, Yadi. Yadi?
Wow, that drone pitch is a solution looking for a problem. Where's the backup qualitative stats indicating the need? The potential acquisition of unmanned aerial vehicles, aka drones, by the city of Pasadena signifies a huge leap forward into the militarization of local law enforcement. You are further normalizing the surveillance of your constituents and having people who live, work, eat, and play in Pasadena be accustomed to being monitored. Let's be frank, these are military drones that you're trying to bring to Pasadena, and it doesn't fit in with the quaint and charming narrative. To give everyone a heads up, maybe the city's slogan should go from City of Roses to City of Militarized Policing to more accurately reflect what you guys are shaping the city into. But you know, you guys say safety. Let me guess, like with ShotSpotter, you're going to create a false dichotomy where we have to choose between a sky full of surveillance drones or more shootings and crime. Because despite what the community wants, if it doesn't fit your directive, you quash dissent by dismissively saying that those of us who are, quote, not impacted residents, or you pass the buck like when you recently told BLM folks seeking accountability for Anthony McLean to head up to Sacramento as if your hands are tied. It's your job to listen to the public calls for transparency and accountability and be effective. So instead, I bring Sacramento to you. I'd like to welcome everyone to AB 481, newly minted this October, which regulates the funding, acquisition, and use of military equipment by law enforcement. It requires law enforcement agencies to produce use policies and impact statements for militarized equipment such as this drone that the agency seeks to acquire or to continue to use. The use policies must be considered by local governing body, aka City Council, by May 2022. And since I have a little bit of time, other Sacramento legislation regarding law enforcement that was just signed are SB 2, Peace Officer Decertification, SB 16, AB 26, AB 48, AB 89, AB 490, AB 958. So handle it.
Next speaker is Heavenly Hughes, followed by Yvonne Trice.
Thank you, Yadi. Ms. Hughes, welcome.
Victor Gordo, you mentioned that we're bringing up things about that are race-based, but when you think of the shot spotter and these drones and more things to bring surveillance to Black and Brown communities, it seems like what you are doing and wanting to put in place as a woman before us, just before me spoke, mentioned that you are turning this into a military zone. And you're doing it in the Black and Brown neighborhood. So that seems to be very race-based to me. And furthermore, you brought up community care and also, again, try to be condescending and degrading when you made a statement as if the community doesn't care about community violence and also care about police violence. Please don't bring division into our community because we care about the community as a whole. We want to avert all violence, including the corruption happening right there in City Hall, right there within the police department. So I want to also ask you, Mayor Victor Gordo, are you positioning yourself to have alliance with the police union? Is that why you continue to want to have all these police toys be brought into our Black and Brown community? Not trying to sound race-based, but I'm just asking. So Mayor Victor Gordo, I look forward to seeing you on the 13th. And again, as I even wrote to you in a letter, you don't have to challenge the community to show yourself approved. Just take the time to be right standing. And what you did, derating the community, telling us that you don't want to hear from anyone outside of Pasadena, is not bringing the community together, is not community care, and it's very divisive. I ask you, Mayor Victor Gordo, to come and hear the community at the Talk Back this Saturday at Boston Court, because you believe that no one is talking to me. No one is talking to different members of my tribe rise, members of your community, your constituents that don't want to talk to you.
Thank you.
Please, Mayor Victor Gordo, don't think of yourself
Your
more
time
highly
has
than you are.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. I did not say you're not entitled to your opinion. Actually, you are entitled to your opinion. You're just not entitled to say you speak for my constituents. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Yvonne Trice, followed by Alan Shea. Star 6 to unmute.
Am I on mute?
We can hear you.
My name is Yvonne Trice. Can you hear me?
We can, Ms. Trice.
Okay. My name is Yvonne Trice. Can everyone hear me? I just want to make sure before I start.
We can hear you, Ms. Trice.
I'm a mother's voice, and I come to talk about, I heard, I'm not sure by names. First of all, I want to say good evening to the city council, good evening to the chief of police, the deputy chief, and every constituent that's there in the community. I'm a mother's voice, not by choice. So when he was talking about the drone, I was hearing him say, if I'm not correct, you can always correct me, that it went by battery. Okay, when we're talking about battery, I know things do what they're doing. I'm not here to debate how it goes because I don't know anything about it other than the games that my grandbabies load up with battery. So my thing is, if you put this in our community as a mother's voice by me, I am just terrified about the things I'm hearing in the city council as far as making it a better place for us as mothers to have a voice. Like when my son got killed out on Sinaloa in Washington, and they told the city council, my whole family is right here. I apologize for listening, and I'm the voice for them right now. When you guys told us, the city council told me when I spoke to City Mayor that he was going to have those cameras checked out on Sinaloa in Washington. We got a back email saying that they didn't work. But 4 years later, you guys find a car coming to where my son Monte Russell lost his life. So I'm concerned, like on that time it didn't work, and this time 4 years later it worked. Who's to say what this drone is capable of that's running by battery? When you have a situation to where there's a life and death situation, like my son loses his life, and you're running something by battery, and it's a 6-hour battery, what happens to that person? What happens to that officer? Let's just be fair about this. What happens to that officer? You guys are hearing me, and you're not hearing anger. You're hearing my tears. You're hearing my heart. I'm crying out to this community because my family, which is here with me now, we've been waiting for response and things for 6 years and have not met one of you. So you're going to put this I don't call it a toy because that would be disrespectful. I don't know how it works, but I do know what electronics do. They run out. The battery stopped working. So is it going to be somebody's life? Will it be the community's life? Or could it be a police officer's life? I truly cannot see that in the city of Pasadena. And on another hand, I truly cannot see that as a mother from the tragedy, my whole family that's sitting here listening to the city council. My daughter still lives there. Some of my family members still live there. I don't live there because of the pain and no answers. And now I'm still back into a community with no answers and playing with things, with batteries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trice. And sorry for your loss. Turning to Mr. Kennedy and then Mr. Hampton.
Sorry, we have one more public speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more public speaker.
Alan Shea.
Alan, welcome back. Mr. Shea, you there?
Well, I am so honored, Mayor Victor Gordo, that you remembered me at the last moment here. So that was supposed to be a joke to kind of get it light, a little lighter here.
I didn't realize there was one more comment, Mr. Shea.
It's a joke because I'm trying to make
I wouldn't do
light
that to
here
you.
because, all right, and I would hope not because we need to align ourselves as much as possible to keep our beautiful, wonderful city safe as possible. I'm making comments because I think all of the speakers tonight have brought some very relevant concern, and my position here is that I think the police department has made a sincere effort to try and bring forth something that could plausibly be safety. However, there's a lot of issues here that has not been really addressed from a safety standpoint. First of all, we have to go back to the trust issue. I truly believe that for the community to overcome the damage that's done by Pasadena police as it relates to Anthony McLean, as it relates to body cameras and how true they're going to be, we got some issues here. So that's going to start by making sure we build our trust. The second thing is really education here. I haven't heard the officers mention true education. People don't want drones flying through their houses or probably even through their community until they know that there's test cases that they're really safe and they've been proven. Just by giving that presentation, didn't really demonstrate a real life situation, what would happen if something like that took place and it hit a kid in the head or blew up or any of these things. We got those kind of concerns. Next, the accountability. We have true accountability issues with the Pasadena Police Department. It doesn't have any proof that any of the factual things could come about. Those are true issues that we don't want to be addressing when there's another claim being filed with the city and we have financial issues now we're dealing with. And last but not least, liability. These things are being proposed in homes, in houses, in structures that they have no clue of how they're going to be impacted by loss of communication, no different than a cell phone. You can jump in an elevator and lose your cell phone call with someone that would affect the effectiveness of this drone. You're talking about using it in these kind of emergency situations where there's live people, body, kids, all these things. It really hasn't been proven. Last but not least, I would really ask that the Public Safety Committee dig deep. You don't want to continue to show that you are over policing.
Your time has expired.
So I would ask, dig deep, do the right thing, and start with trust first. Get the community to trust you, certainly with our new change coming about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Now we can turn to Mr. Kennedy, then Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Lieutenant Mk2, for your presentation on the possible deployment of a drone. What I would like to know in response to one of the questions is the Loki 2.0 a military quality zone drone?
No, sir, it's not.
Secondly, can you explain how, if you had deployed the drone in question at 571 North Madison, that it would have assisted you in the legitimate police work that was undertaken in that instance?
Yes, sir. So as I had mentioned, we were barricaded, or there was this, our ground robot became an obstruction to get through the front door. We did not know the whereabouts of his firearms. We knew he had one because he had fired at patrol prior to us getting there. He was no longer talking to our those that he was communicating with, our negotiators. And so in this instance, rather than having to put officers in to gain the intelligence of was he breathing, was he alive, had he taken his life, was he playing possum, trying to bait us in for a gun-to-gun confrontation, rather than having to do that with our officers, we would have been able to put this drone in to see that he had guns on either side of him next to his hands. That would have provided us the intelligence that if we chose to not make entry with our officers, we could have avoided that. There were other options or other tools that we could have decided to use that would have prevented us from having to go in while encouraging him to exit out to us in a safe manner. And that information we didn't have because we didn't have intelligence as to what was actually happening in the room once we lost control of our ground robot.
And what would have been the entry point of the drone?
It would have been through the bedroom door.
No, what I'm trying to get at, how would it have entered the house, the actual structure?
So we would have flown it through the front door like our ground robot did into the house.
Oh, so our officers did not have to breach the front door?
Not until we lost control of our ground robot. The ground robot was able to open the door, make its way in, and our hopes were to be able to clear it with the ground robot and gain that intelligence that I had mentioned prior. Once we lost control of the ground robot, again, now it's a large obstacle in the way, but the front door was still open, the bedroom door was open because of what the ground robot was able to accomplish.
And tell me, or tell us, how you believe this could, again, you've already shared it, minimize the risk of use of force against our officers and our officers using force.
Fortunately, our officers did not have to use force. However, the heightened emotion.
The question, let me remove this. Tell us how the use of Loki 2.0 would add a layer of security and safety for our officers and likewise the community.
It would have prevented us from having to put 4 officers into his room with their rifles pointed at him while he had guns on either side of him next to his hands. We would have known that beforehand and would have worked the problem longer with other special weapons, or not weapons, but other tactics.
And if I may, more broadly, and I think this is where the council members' questions are related to, having this extra tool, allowing the officers to see what actually is going on in the room, provides tremendous support for their actions. You know, what happens is officers don't know what's going on. They don't know if someone is being held hostage. They don't know the condition of the people in the room. It's the unknown, and it's that uncertainty and that unknown that often can lead to tragic outcomes. So having additional information, knowing what's going on in the room, it's simply a camera on this small device, and that allows the officers to act appropriately given the circumstances.
So in the instance at 571 North Madison, easily, even though you have potentially flak vests or some other type of vest to protect yourself as a law enforcement professional, you are under tremendous risk when someone has that kind of weaponry at their side. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, it is.
And you did not necessarily understand how dangerous the situation was until you observed it with the naked eye. Is that true?
Yes.
If you had the technology deployed and no one destroyed the technology while it was deployed in that house, you would have learned critical facts that could potentially save not only a police officer lives, but also the life of the suspect. Would that be accurate?
100% so, sir.
How do we tell the community, even though you've already shared it, but how do we convince the community that the drone would be for very limited engagement, not only to protect police officers, but to protect the community, whether it's residents, visitors, business owners, etc.?
There are a couple of different options. Working hand in hand with our community services section, we could do so through presentations, through open house. some neighborhood watch meetings, things of that sort. We have also made a video showing our officers working with it. It's a little bit commercialized. I thought it was too commercialized for this meeting. But that is something that we plan on being able to make available for people in the community to see how it works and get a better understanding.
Well, to you, Lieutenant, and the officer next to you, I think the presentation was a good presentation. I think my colleagues will have other questions for you that will help alleviate some of the fears that have been expressed related to more technology equals over policing. I would like Lieutenant and the city manager and the deputy chief for the use policy of the drone to be shared not only here at Public Safety, but at Police Oversight Commission before the technology is deployed. Deputy Chief, is that reasonable request?
Absolutely, sir. We would not deploy it before there was a policy that dictates its use. Also, so you'll know, so the community knows, this is it. It records. It's a camera. There's a camera attached to it. So if something does occur inside one of these residents, everything that's happening will be recorded.
Now, just to be clear in the presentation, this device is not just for residents. It could be commercial buildings. It could be other structures that are not residential. Is that correct, Lieutenant?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So I am glad that you brought the presentation. I would ask that Chief Deputy City Attorney answer the questions that a speaker by the name of Yadi, Y-A-D-I, had, and provide to the council all of the legislation that she referenced for our consideration here at Public Safety or at the City Council. I thank you for a very fine presentation, gentlemen, and hope you have a nice evening. Thank you very much, Mayor, for the
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
opportunity.
The questions raised by Yadi will be answered by within the policy, I take it?
Mayor, I think they can be answered within the policy, but
Okay.
also just for Councilmember Kennedy's to answer his question.
And out of full disclosure, I know Yadi. She was my campaign manager for.
The bill that the speaker raised was Assembly Bill 481. The governor signed that a couple months ago. It does require compliance with certain procedures before purchasing military equipment, as the speaker mentioned. One item of military equipment is unmanned, remotely piloted, powered aerial or ground vehicles. One thing that I think most common definitions of vehicle is something that carries goods or people, and this doesn't carry goods or people. I think the only thing beyond sort of flying that it does is carrying a video feed. And so since it doesn't carry goods or people, it doesn't appear that it falls under the definition of military equipment for the statute.
I can assure you, Yadi will do her homework and challenge us on that note if she disagrees.
Mayor, my request is broader than the drone. I don't know the legislation that she referenced, and I'd like her to provide. I'd like
the city attorney to provide it.
Yeah, just to provide the legislation because I haven't reviewed it.
Okay, so we'll ask the city attorney to maybe include that in the weekly city attorney letter.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Hampton?
Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was a very thorough presentation. And it led me to a lot of questions of going down a rabbit hole of just thoughts. I mean, I know that right now, or at least I don't know. Maybe I should ask you this question. Could this drone be weaponized?
No, sir. There's no payload capacity on it. The bottom of it is where the battery goes, and there's no attachment nor any function on the controller to release any kind of payload had there been one, which there's not.
It's very light, Mr. Hampton. If for those of us who were able to touch it, and I appreciate the officer handing it around, it's extremely light. I don't see how it could sustain any sort of weaponry.
So how could it not just be knocked out of the air by the suspect, or is it very durable? I mean, if I hit it with a tennis racket, would it survive that?
No.
Yeah, so it can be knocked out of the air. It depending if it's if you have a strong backhand or not, sir, it may survive, it may not. But what that does ultimately is it provides us with intelligence about what's happening inside that room, where the suspect is, how the suspect may be armed, that we wouldn't have had that happened. And then if one goes down, we can send in the second one if we need further information.
If that were to happen, Mr. Hampton, I suspect it would give the police department an idea of the state of mind of the suspect.
Well, I assume that any suspect who would see a drone flying would try to hit it down. I don't know who said what. Well, at least I wouldn't be in that. Never plan on being in any position like that where I need to hit a drone down in my home. But I would imagine that anybody who would see something like that flying that close to them or around them or hear it, is it silent, by the way?
No, it's rather
Because
loud.
drones are normally very loud.
Yeah, this one, it sounds like a large, like a hum from a hive, a beehive.
Yeah. So is this going to come back to us? The policy will come back to us prior to the purchase, or is it the other way around?
No, Mr. City Manager, you want to handle that?
The policy is an administrative policy that would be promulgated by the police chief, as with all other departmental policies.
I think this is, I asked the same question, Mr. Hampton, why this is before us. It's to inform the Public Safety Committee, to inform the community that this is a tool that's intended to provide more officer safety, avoid gun-to-gun battles in our community. It's just an additional tool, and this is here for information purposes, not for policy approval.
Okay. So regardless of the fact, there's no vote on this tonight.
No, this is an information item. We wanted to share with the committee and the public the technology used by the police department. We want to be upfront and open about it.
This is an example of no good deed goes unpunished. They're wanting to keep us informed as to the tools that they're exploring and using to try and keep, in the case of a barricaded suspect, even protect a barricaded suspect from himself or herself. And so that's why this is here.
Could this device be used in the wake of a fire, a house fire, et cetera? Could the fire department also utilize something like this?
Council member, potentially, although obviously I would imagine if it gets too close to a heat source, it might melt. Separately, I've talked to the fire chief about the use of drones that are more suitable for outdoors. We have, as you know, in your district, we have the Arroyo Seco, and we're always worried about how homeless encampments contribute to fire danger in the Arroyo, and using some sort of an aerial drone for greater surveillance in the Arroyo in the event of a fire, or looking for encampments to address fire danger, I think is a real world application that would be of benefit to our community. So it's possible that the next presentation you hear on drones will be from our fire chief.
Okay.
We're going to lose our quorum at 7:30, so I just want to caution us.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I just want to be brief. I'm very uncomfortable with this. I do believe that we need to do whatever we can to protect the safety of our officers as well as our public. I was reading a story out of Dallas, Texas, and I'm sure you all are aware, maybe the officers are aware of this story. And the reason why I'm very weary of this type of technology. Now, other technologies, I'm all supportive. I'm normally really supportive of technologies in general because it's less personal interaction, which could be helpful in a lot of cases. But in this case, it kind of reminds me of the story out of Dallas, Texas. I know California is a completely different place, but in Dallas, for the at least the first time I've ever heard of a robot shot and killed a suspect that was operated by the police department, and that just opens up a whole nother door. And this type of technology, in my opinion, is a real slippery slope and could open up a door for something that, 5-10 years from now, we're no longer here on the council, et cetera, that because of an action like this, we're now purchasing robots that could do this type of work, or a drone that is weaponized. So, I know that we already have robots, but it's just something that we should really, really, really look at. I am all supportive of protecting the lives of our police officers and our community members. But technology and sometimes could be a hindrance and not lead to the best outcomes, as I've seen in Dallas. Well, I mean, maybe the circumstances, it was a good outcome for officer safety and life, but it just sounds like, I'm sorry, I don't know another word to say it. It's like the Terminator to me. I'm sorry, I can't be supportive of this, but it sounds like you guys already have it and you've already purchased it, and now we're just looking at a policy around it. If the policy is for commercial buildings, I would hope I would be more supportive of that, but this in general it opens up a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, and I'm sorry that I can't support this at this time.
Councilmember,
thank you.
We appreciate that, and just briefly, I think any technology, any tool can be misused. I think what's key is having an appropriate policy that is available for public inspection, and then periodic audits to ensure that we're adhering to the policy to avoid any type of abuse. So your comments are well taken. Thank you.
And these
Thank you. I will forward the article from the Texas Tribune to the city clerk so he can forward it to the rest of the council members.
Please do. Thanks.
Thank you. And the let me put a different twist on it, Mr. Hampton. It sounds like we already employ robots now. In this technology, I've learned over time that a lot of barricaded suspects are struggling with some sort of mental health issue, or experiencing a mental health crisis. And to the extent that this technology could help us discover that maybe someone who's barricaded is really experiencing a mental health breakdown or a crisis, that would avoid our officers having to engage someone, not knowing ahead of time that someone is engaged in a mental health crisis. I support that because the last thing I want to see is our officers charging in, knocking down the door with someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis. And if we'd have known it, maybe we would have handled it differently. And so I do applaud the department for looking for technology and tools to keep our constituents safer and to keep officers safer. And, I view this as a step in transparency. You didn't have to bring this to us, but you brought it to us so that the Public Safety Committee can be informed and so that the public can be informed at steps that the department is taking to try and avoid horrific situations like that, where someone experiencing a mental health crisis is somehow engaged in a battle with our police officers, and it doesn't end well for anyone. And so, thank you.
And Mayor, to your point about the mental health crisis, I agree with the statement. And I think that the earlier item about how the service area and community engagement will be very helpful when, knocking on doors, talking to the residents, you'll get an idea of who lives in those homes, and the neighbors will tell you, that person is a little off, or, do this with kid gloves. And so I think that that's really helpful. In this case, like I said, it sounds like we already have it, and I do appreciate the transparency, but I just have personal reservations toward this, and I'm normally very supportive of technology. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Okay, I think we're right up at about the time when we're losing our quorum. Yeah, let's just quickly just receive and file the first two items. We do need a motion on the approval of the minutes and the cancellation notice. So that was item one. I inadvertently skipped it. So why don't we go ahead? And
We have a first and a second.
Thank you.
To approve the minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Move approval. First, second.
Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Chair Gordo.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, I think that concludes our agenda. The rest of the agenda is receive and file, and we will receive and file. Unless
Mayor,
yes.
Very quickly, I'll be very quick. It would be helpful, as we hear from public comments, that the city needs to do more investment in the community of kids and seniors. I mean, I've always asked for this. I think that we have to do a really good job of presenting what we're all doing, so that so that we could direct those comments and they could hear what we're doing as a community and the programs, et cetera. But also, then we can get positive feedback that's going to say, or not positive, or constructive feedback that will let us know, oh, you know what, you are doing this, but this is what I would like for the council to target a little bit more. So I just, whenever we get a chance, I don't know if it comes to public safety or comes to full city council, but it would be great to have some sort of package of the community efforts that our city does, and they do a lot of it and a lot of great work.
Thank you. Good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Okay, we are adjourned.